morning, Joe, Joseph, Larry.
Good
Joseph,
morning.
note taker.
Yeah, I'm taking it off. I don't know.
It's automatic. No big deal.
Everyone.
How are you, Joseph? I hope your family's doing okay.
Thank you. We're learning to learn within this situation.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Um, how's everyone doing?
Good.
I can't believe it's been a week. Already.
Actually, 2 weeks for you. We had actually
2 weeks for me. That's right.
interesting conversation last week. I'm not sure if you had the chance to listen in.
I have not yet. But this week is a little less hectic than last week because we have C3D done. It's never done, but done.
Big life, sure.
Yeah, that allows me to come up for air. Yeah, it's a huge amount of work. There are approximately 20 hours of instruction in there. I'm psyched. I'm going to be interested to hear customer satisfaction, right? The crazy 8 from Dimension 1. I'm going to be interested to hear how people receive it, if they get value. So David Prowse, awesome.
Hey, long time no see, George.
Yeah, long time no see. I
was here last
week.
You were missing, so
I was missing. I was in getting some really good news. Sid had a bone marrow biopsy, and she is in what's called stringent remission, and we're just waiting to get confirmation that she is what's called MRD negative. So, was worth missing this meeting for. So anyway, onward Excelsior. How have you been, David?
I've been very busy, but in a good way. So
good. That's a beautiful thing. What's any topic that's burning a hole in your worlds, guys? Good morning, Tim. Tim, I already gone in. I've cloned that email and I've fixed the time. Thanks for pointing it out.
I thought I missed something. I was busy trying to cover all my bases and catch up, and I looked and I thought, oh my God, they changed the time. So
no, we're not to change the time. So sorry about that. And
worries.
It won't happen. Well, it may happen again. There are humans involved, but we'll try to make sure it doesn't happen again. So
humans just get in the way of good work.
Yeah. We didn't have all these customers. We wouldn't have these problems.
That's right.
So that was a joke in a business that I ran. So anything top of mind that you guys are dying to discuss? Now, would it be helpful if, my brain is so wrapped around C3D. Are you guys all familiar with what's in the course? No. Okay. Then if it's okay with you, I'll just give let me see, how am I going to do this? C3D. I'm just going to go to, okay. You know what I might do? I just pulled up I don't even know what class number it is. I'll just share my screen because I think this will be helpful. Share, and we'll slide. So clearly I pulled up class 13. Where I grew up, 13 was a lucky number. I know it's not a lucky number in the States, but 13 was a lucky number. So what's in the course? It's divided into 4 sections, methodology, and then the growth drive action cycle, analyze, design, execute. Those of you who have participated in our previous launch course will recognize that people who, so analyze, design, execute. Eric, good morning, man. Eric, before I hog the microphone, anything burning? Because I asked if anybody had a topic they wanted to discuss, and I was met with stone silence. So anything you want to discuss?
State of politics in the world,
that's a third rail, man. I'm
anything, and I didn't have anything coming in particular that was on my mind. I always find this conversation to be engaging. We always come up with something that's good.
Absolutely. Let's get into politics a little bit. It's not politics, just things that are going on. I had a fascinating podcast interview with Carl J. Cox last night. So let me run through what's in the C3. And a couple of you guys who were on this call were faculty. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Larry. So we start with, there's a short intro video. That's not part of the curriculum. Then we give an overview of the growth drive methodology and process. That's Larry and I. And then we're doing something new. Valuation 101. The valuation module was recorded with Ed Wonke, who has forgotten more about formal valuation than any of us will ever know. And Rob Waring of SCA Advisors in Philadelphia, an investment banker, but one of us. So we talked about valuation 6 ways to Sunday. We then have an exit planning module. This is featuring our very own Eric Owen. So exit planning, and I hear it's called 101, but that's not really doing it justice. And something that we did in this course, this is not for CE, right? There are no limitations. So I think a couple of the modules are just a little shy, like they're in the mid 50 minutes, but most of these run over an hour because I wasn't going to kill a conversation where we were getting a lot of good material. So exit planning, that's with Eric and Fletcher Brown, the CEO of the Business Enterprise Institute, CEXP. Eric representing the other major credential, the CEPA. A terrific conversation there. And then we get into collaboration with our very own Mike. He's not on the call. Mike Garrison. And we talk, you can imagine how that conversation goes with Mike. Then we move into analyze, design, and execute. How do we generate, what are best practices for getting CEO clarity and the growth conversation and using clarity level 1 with CEOs? Now, this is not about the software, right? This is about the 3 dimensions of business growth and the growth drive process. We then move, as our process does, into senior leadership team clarity, right? And the senior leadership alignment report and workshop. And then deep analysis, which is data to fuel strategy. And Larry is in many of these, so many that I can't remember which ones he's not in. Then we get into design. And design is, I did the 3 dimensions of growth, right? So dimension 1, predictable profits and cash flow, predictable sustainable growth, and predictable transferable business value. Those 3 in the design section, and really going deep on the growth driving objectives and key results. So the entire methodology. And we move into execute, right? How are we going to take all that we've learned about a client and turn it into a plan? So we do execute 1, the analyze, design, execute cycle. And talking about, Larry and I talk about how that cycle works. Then project design and business flow. How do we design a project that has a high likelihood of being successfully implemented, right? Implementation's the name of the game. The execution leadership business operating system, that has Andy Weevil helps teach a case study on Ridge specialty tooling. And we have really expanded the case study as a narrative and facts with all of the supporting analyses. So we weave that throughout the course. And then, as business advisors, having a solid foundation in facilitation skills and techniques is very important. And Andy Weevil came back in, and we'd spend well over an hour delivering the 5 Ps module from the Growth Drives facilitation class, the 5 Ps of preparation. Who can recite them? And then we finally wrap it up in class 16 with, I give an overview of how we see the role of the business advisor and how Growth Drive can help you expand your reach and impact. But much more importantly, and the path to mastery, right? How do we demonstrate to the market that we have the chops to move a client forward and promote our own authority, et cetera? But then much more interestingly, we get into a conversation with, I think there were 6, Anna, Larry, Andy, Ed. Who else was on that call, Larry? About 6 people. And we just had Eric. Thank you, Eric. We have an open discussion about our profession, how we work with clients. And it is really a great, I've gone back and watched it again. It was a great conversation. So that's the course. Like I said, it's about 20 hours all in, and it's on demand. So watch a module. They're in YouTube. So you can, if you would like to watch them a little more quickly, you can accelerate, pause, leave, come back, up to you. There's a short quiz after 10 multiple choice questions. Short, but important for cementing the learning. And then we're going to do 4 review sessions, 4 classes each session. And those are going to, the faculty will take part in that. And then there's an exam. So that's that's a lot of work. And so I'm really grateful to everyone who participated on the stage and behind the scenes in putting this together. So I'm really psyched, guys. It's in the LMS. You'll be seeing, I'll be beating the drum loud and hard on this. So.
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks,
George.
Thank you.
It's taken a lot of thought to arrive at those 16 lessons. It wasn't just a random picking.
See, we
incredible
the curriculum and then crashed the curriculum and rebuilt the curriculum.
Yeah.
And in fact,
And I think it also speaks to a previous conversation around elevating the profession as well. So it serves different purposes, one of which is really to say, hey, we might all practice differently, but we need a core set of knowledge to work from to ensure everyone is at least a certain level and beyond of knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. And something that is designed into the course is this concept of multidisciplinary collaboration, right? This is a community in which we have management consultants and wealth advising exit planners and exit planning exit planners, Eric and a few other who are completely committed to that as a service. Strategic planning, we have CPAs, investment bankers, fractional CFOs. So it's a professionally diverse community. And the course is designed to serve those 5 professions, if you will, and everyone, on the 1 to 5 scale, everyone from 2 to 5. I don't think a talker, our ones, is going to be interested in the course, but anyone who wants to educate clients about making profit and transferable value actionable, should consider taking this course.
What is the cost of the course, George?
SRP is $5,995, Eric. We are offering it to the first class at we have promotional pricing, and it also includes, Eric, so it's the recordings.
Yeah.
And I don't have them immediately underhand. Yes. So this is a previous version, but it is a 1-inch binder that is literally so full you couldn't put another sheet of paper in it, with all sorts of resources. In fact, all sorts of resources, case studies, cases, templates, how-tos, scripts for the growth conversation, that 5 Ps of preparation, that facilitation. There's just a ton in here, and a half a dozen books. My book, which I guess is logical. But there's also Carl's book, Lost at CEO. There is a Harvard Business Review, financial intelligence from HBR, which is a fabulous primer on corporate finance. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Put call sign chaos. I think it's really important. I'm a liberal arts kind of guy, and call sign chaos from Jim Mattis, General Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis. Really is a fantastic read on intent, commander's intent, and the power of communicating vision and mission down through the ranks. It's really a fun read. There's also Dan Quayle's The Culture Code. If you haven't read it, I recommend you read it first because it is such a great read. I've read it a couple of times, and it's valuable and entertaining. You will learn some cool stuff about culture, and I'm for some reason forgetting one more book. Anyway, $1 Million Consulting Proposals from Alan Weiss.
Alan Weiss, yeah.
So Alan, a prodigious author
And a seminal author in that space, right? I mean,
yeah, and $1 Million Consulting Proposals is a really good. It's a good resource. So the intent is that with those books, we get we kind of round out our understanding and have specific, referenceable works. When you read Commander's Intent, call sign chaos, really, I think it goes a long way to exploring and explaining the power of a well-designed intent. And intent, of course, for those of you who are watching this who aren't in the community, intent is a more powerful communication of goals. Right. Intent has context and commitment. And And it can be as, stated as simply as the difference between my goal is to grow the business to 5 million of profits versus I intend to grow the business to 5 million in profits. And if you just think about those two sentences, imagine the different mindset between the two. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So you mentioned a discounted pricing. What is the discounted pricing off of just under 6,000 for the community?
Yeah, we did $5 off.
Excellent.
No, I'll publish that, Eric. Publish that in, but like today, tomorrow, it'll be published, and
very good.
And we're going to limit the first class. I'm going to limit the first class in size.
So you go through it you sign up and go through it as a cohort, George?
Right now, yes, Eric. That's the intent. Is to go through the cohort, and then we'll workshop. The review sessions are not obligatory. I would recommend them. They're not obligatory, but the 4 sessions, we will all get together, faculty and as many of the faculty as can make it, and students, and have an open mic discussion on any of the topics from those 4 classes. So it'll be similar. It's an open mic discussion. So
no,
psyched.
Very good, sir.
I'm psyched. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was, and I've built classes before. This was even more work than I'd imagined, which is why it is no longer January or even really February. But we did it as quickly as we could do it right. And yeah, man.
And one last thing, George, flexibility, since the way you designed it, to update a particular module.
Yes.
If need be.
Yes. And I anticipate that we will. So that does, Larry, you just hit the nail on the head. As you guys, as people complete the course and as we get feedback, we will be able to say, okay, well, we should sharpen the pencil here, or I guarantee there's going to be how could I not have included, blank. So we will evolve it. And if you have participated in the course, you will continue to have access for a long period of time to the course, not for months. Think in terms of a year. So as we update it, as we update it, I want to make sure that you guys have access to it, and that we're not updating it for the sake of generating additional revenue. It'll be because we want to sharpen your understanding. So, I'm pretty damn excited about it. So.
It is way cool, George. Way cool.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We will, yeah. I'm excited.
I might have to skip the 2 modules that I taught in because I can't watch myself on video.
I had to get over that. When you first do, I was like, ooh, I feel all self-conscious.
Who's the idiot?
Then the modules you taught, guys, and the way we put it in the LMS, Eric, kind of to your point, you do not have to watch the whole video. People who purchase the course, if they decide that they don't want to watch the videos and they just want to go through and take the quiz, and that's up to you.
Yeah.
That the entire. I'm sure you're gonna.
But not the intent of the course. The intent of the course is to grow and not just check the box on the exam. The intent of the course is to become a better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and on the exam, it's multiple choice plus just a one page written question, and there are other resources that come with the course. I mentioned the playbook. That's great. For every class, we have the transcript. We have client-facing talking points and a summary doc. Summary of the key points from the, so there's a ton.
George, just maybe I think I understand. I watch the video by myself whenever I would need to watch the video. I'm in a cohort. The class instructor times are scheduled.
That's correct.
Okay. So then I join a cohort and we start in March 1, and once a week there's a cohort meeting with the instructors, or how does that work if I'm self-studying, but there's planned times?
Approximately, so once a quarter. So we'll do it to, end of March, beginning of April. It's on my calendar. I just haven't published it yet, Eric.
Yeah.
We will get together and do the review session. And so on Monday, it's 2 hours, 3 to 5 Eastern on classes 1 through 4. Tuesday, 3 to 5 Eastern.
So the review sessions are for each of the 4 links that you showed us.
Got it.
Not each session, but each group of sessions.
Each group of sessions, yeah. So we can discuss them in context.
And when you said each quarter, so you're thinking it takes a year to go through this as a...
Oh no. We're going to offer it 4 times a year, like the complete course.
I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. What I want to make sure is that we are delivering the quality and value that you expect from us. And so that feedback, if people are cratering on the quiz, I doubt you will, but if people are cratering on the quizzes, then I'll know that, we'll true it up. But the intent, Eric, is to make sure that you guys are getting an immense amount of value from the course, and that because the intent is for you to gain new knowledge.
Yeah.
And to increase your confidence as you sit with clients, whether or not someone decides they want to use the Clarity tool or not. I want them to be able to sit confidently in front of a client and have these conversations and lead the client to better understanding, lead the client to better behaviors. Again, as I said earlier, within the context of your personal advisory goals.
Yeah.
You're a recovering CPA, but you're an exit planner. That is your stock in trade, right? That is what you are the best, one of the best in the world at. And, within the context of your advisory business, we want you to be able to take this body of knowledge and confidently use it with your client.
What I'm thinking about is, this feels like going off to university at 18, getting my degree in my specialized profession, and then I come out of it, I've done some work in it, I've gotten a lot smarter. I think there's another component, George, I guess, from my perspective, that I'd be thinking about, and that is, do we formalize a little bit the idea of mentoring? Do we formalize, do we get some people in the community to raise their hand and say, I'm willing to be a mentor, whether that's an informal relationship to answer people's questions, or whether that's I'm going to talk to 2 or 3 people at a time and help them. Because let's be honest, guys, if you're already doing this stuff and you're just trying to sharpen your tool and do it better, this is great, right? Like, I know how to do these 6 things. I'm going to learn this 1 or 2, right? Or I'm going to get better at this one. I'm already doing it, but I want to get better at it. But if you're trying to break into this and trying to figure it out, you've read the books and you've gotten the theory, but the hard part is actually going out and doing one, right? Like, how do you do that? Or how do you, if you're on your scale of 1 to 5, you're a talker and you want to now be a doer on the scale, how do I do that? How do I jump from here to here, right? That requires more than just taking a course or reading a book. That requires some help from somebody who's going to say, look, I don't have all the answers. Eric isn't the smartest guy. I don't know. This is how I do it. You can learn from me, but you can make it your way, right? Like, it's got to fit you, right? But I can show you how to do it, and then you can figure out your take on that, and you can go do it, right? To me, that's mentoring, right?
I love it. I absolutely love it. That's why we're a community. Yeah. I love the idea, and I'd love to hear your feedback, suggestions, all of you, on how that would be.
It's almost an apprenticeship, if you will, not formal, but in a mentoring way. It's like, I went and I studied the electrical handbooks, and I know how to hook up wires. Now, how do I cut the hole in the wall and actually put the wires together into the box and hook up the light switch, right? Like, it's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to say, hey, here's this wire with no hole in it. What do I do? Right?
Absolutely. Well, and there's a certain amount of that happening today. There are two comments I'd make. There's a certain amount of that happening today in the community just naturally. I love the idea of formalizing it. We also have study groups, and joining a study group might be, or standing up a study group might be another way to approach it. I love the concept of a buddy system, though.
Maybe it's a dozen people getting together and, people raising their hand and saying, I don't know how to do this. And the peer group with a facilitator is helping them figure it out, right? I'm not suggesting to make it so formal that we gotta have it in a certain way. I'm simply saying, I guarantee you there are people in the community who would like to go from here to here and they don't know how to do it.
I guarantee you're right, Eric. And another idea might be to have, rather than a coffee Klatsch, it's a C3D forum that happens once a week. However, you guys, I'm just tossing out ideas. The important, work success, man. I love your
this call. I don't see a bunch of people trying to figure out everything. I see a bunch of people who are, near the top of their game, who are trying to, they're trying to be even sharper, right? That's a different group than the group who are really trying to figure it out and go get, one-on-one type of classes and understand how this works. That's people on this call right now.
Well, yeah, Eric, that's true. A part of this is attracting new people to the community, but attracting new people to George's business. And there's a seriousness to what we do. And there's not just methodology, but there is incredible background that you will be exposed to elevate your knowledge to be able to do it. So I think it serves multiple purposes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm simply saying, I think if I'm being critical of it in a helpful way, the piece that's missing is the view of, okay, I'm going to get some books, I'm going to get some training. Now I got to walk into a room with the CEO and try and do this, and that's an uncomfortable jump from having learned a bunch of stuff to then jumping in the deep end by myself.
Heck yeah.
That's the point I'm making. That's the only point I'm making, that there may be an additional part that we need to formalize to help people make that jump into the deep end, because we're going to stand on the side of the pool and encourage them and jump in if they need help. That's all.
Yeah. Good point. Totally agree. I will say, and a lot of you know this, a lot of what exists in the Growth Tribe community is because my phone rings and it's, hey, George, I did X, I did Clarity Level 1. Now what? Hey, George, I did the senior leadership report. Now what? Hey, George, I did the deep analysis. Now what? And it's been our effort to answer that. Now what? And Eric, you make a great point. One small part of the answer, which just goes to skills development, is the facilitation class, which we're going to beef up a little bit. We're gonna add a day to the live, or a half day to the live portion. And the facilitation course, for those of you who have not seen it, is a series of online classes, and that we could record and put in the LMS. Facilitation, though, you've got to talk, right? I mean, you can't learn facilitation. You can't learn how to ride a bicycle from a book. You got to, and so facilitation is very much
willing to skin your knees.
That's exactly right. So, and then we all get together here where did we get together the last time? In Florida. We got together in Fort Lauderdale. Doesn't matter where. We all get together and practice. We workshop facilitation.
That was great. That was very, very well structured by Andy in your course, and critical to advance the actual skill set of facilitating. And it was funny, Eric, that you brought this up, because the people in the room weren't rookies. We're some of the most experienced people in our community saying, I want to get better at this thing called facilitation.
Wait, if you're a lifelong learner, you're going to want to continue to grow and learn. I learned listening to Tim present, and I do is change. I listened to Tim at the end of January, of course, I spoke on something else, and he spoke on change management, and I was listening intently and going, wow, that's really good. And then I was thinking, wow, that ties into what I'm doing. I should change something in my methodology that aligns with what Tim said. That's a better way to look at it, right? that's us, like the six of us and people like us growing at that top level, right? My point is, if we're trying to get new people into the profession and we're trying to stretch them from being ones or twos to being 3, 4s, and 5s, you gotta give them, they gotta have the lifeguard on the side of the pool, or they're gonna go, shit, I'm jumping in the pool. That's too freaking scary, right? I think I know how to swim. I read the book on swimming, but I don't, can I do, am I gonna sink? Right. And so I'm simply suggesting, and I think we differentiate ourselves from almost everybody else in the API community. I love that we do a lot of instructing and a lot of classes and a lot of things. Everybody's doing a lot of class kind of things and a lot of book kind of reading. Very few groups are doing the actual get together and learn how to apply what you've learned in a real way, right? That could be a huge differentiator, George. That's my point.
I love, yeah, I hear you loud and clear, and I'm in violent agreement.
Yeah.
George, in the
Our
fitness,
community of doers. Tim, please.
in the fitness industry, we used to do a challenge because it was just that scary. Like people who had lived like an under healthy lifestyle for a long period of time were making a significant change. So we would do the challenge. So we would call it the fitness challenge or whatever the case it would be. And maybe there's some kind of a challenge for people coming out of C3D. Okay, now you've got I'm making it up now, the first client challenge or the 90-day challenge. And then you would maybe be assigned, maybe there's a mentor or something like that, where your goal is now to go in and swim from this end to that end. And I'm going to be right here, right? And by the time you get to, we're going to celebrate you on the, maybe just a challenge idea.
I'm looking for a pen. Minute 36. Okay, Tim, I love that idea as well.
Yeah, sweet.
That is a cool idea, because, and that's those of you who've been through onboarding, and something we're about to redo the onboarding videos to which you will all have access. One of the things is now go just find a client. And you've heard me say this, right? Find a client with whom you're very comfortable, someone you know well, someone you've worked with in the past, someone you identify that you're going to be completely comfortable with, and run Clarity Level 1 with them.
Yeah.
We'll learn.
I did Clarity 1 the first time. I took an existing customer that I knew, and I just said, we're going to walk through this. And they found it to be tremendously valuable by focusing in on the questions and the organization of it. I found it to be valuable because I found it to be a really organized way to go through what I was doing before, but I was doing it just by the nature of my conversation and knowing where to ask and knowing how far to drill into things. It created organization, which then created clarity, ironically, right?
It looked like Joe, not Joseph. Joe,
Yeah.
you were trying
Joe Lorenz, you were trying to say something.
Ryan. Yeah, there you go. Oh, you're still on.
You're still muted, Joe. Well, your mic isn't picking up.
Any better?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we run across a lot of caps, right? We talk to a lot of business owners, and one of those, you hear say 3 magical things that qualify them for the growth driver. Because what I currently do is I have this profit driver piece, $1 million to 10 million, and then growth driver is 5 million, let's say 50 million. And what I sort of say it as a senior leaders is kind of like, how many senior leaders do they have? And it's a complexity of the communication internally to get things done. And is a outsourced CFO considered a senior leader? How do they play a role into this? And so just looking for an idea of saying, people have been saying, there's a couple of companies out there, but and we've got a couple of presentations coming in where we're trying to test the growth driver. And so pre-qualifying the level of sophistication within the management team was what kind of creates this obviously exit strategy by the owner's perspective. And so I would have access to another coaching program that's really focused on just finding leaky profits, driving growth, and breaking free in a very simplistic model for the entrepreneur to understand, right? Because I think we will have a tendency to overtalk the owner, and they get intimidated. And how do we break it down? So a rule of thumb on that from a readiness for the big boy projects, if you will. Anybody have some experience there?
So the question is, how do you present the holistic idea of exit to a business owner without blowing them out of the water? Did I simplify that enough, Joe?
Or just pre-qualifying them for what I consider to be, this is a $100,000 commitment, right? And so over a period of time, the willingness to spend that kind of money, the willingness to have the complexity that exists in the organization. What's that readiness question? Maybe multiple, but
Yeah,
that's
that's an interesting conversation, Joe.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of the growth conversation is that it is absolutely a qualifying conversation. And you made a great point there. How do we make the money? The money shouldn't be a consideration, right? Do they understand where they want to go? Have they really thought this through? Can we guide them? And this is where facilitation comes in. Can we guide them to understanding their personal intent from which emanates a business intent and for the investment of time, right? Their most finite and precious resource and treasure. And there is a point, there's a revenue line, which in my experience is somewhere at let's just roughly 2.5 million, where the mindset of the entrepreneur changes from viewing expenditures as lost money and viewing expenditures as potentially investments in a better future. And all of that, it should be part of the growth conversation. And then the money, I can get all that for only X is really what we're trying to get them to, without giving a class on the growth conversation. That's, Joe, I think that goes a long way to answering that. And the growth conversation is actually, how do we get the business owner to talk about themselves, their family, their stakeholders, their legacy? How do we get them what questions? And that's what's in this puppy. That's actually probably the biggest section in here is on the growth conversation. So important. To your point, Joe.
Joe, my answer would parallel George's, but I might skin the cat just a little differently. I start with actually, I would say it a little differently. I think we're saying the same things. I start with trying to find out what the business owner really, really wants. If I can find out what their desire is and get them to agree to that point, in essence, hey, I want to, I was talking to a client that I engaged for an exit, and we were having our second meeting yesterday and going through their goals and objectives, right? What do they want to do? And he said, I want to be down to 20 hours a week from the 40 to 60 hours a week I am right now. I said, great. What does that 20 hours look like? Which 20 hours do you want to be doing? Right. And we talked through all that. And then I asked him the real question. What do you think? In this case, it's a guy. What do you think your wife will say to that? Is that what she wants? Getting them to actually think about what it is they want and why they want it. That's what actually helps me qualify. Because to Tim's point, when he made it about getting people into a fitness world, if they just say, boy, I'd like to look better in my swimsuit, but I never go to the beach, you're never going to get them motivated. But if they hang out at the beach all the time and they want to look better in their swimsuit, and they want to, and they're single and they want to try and find somebody, boy, that's a really motivated person, right? So I'm trying to measure the motivation and what's driving them and really peel the onion down to that. Once I understand what the motivation is and what's really driving them, lining up, asking them to spend 50 grand on it versus 30 grand versus 20 grand, honestly, from my perspective, isn't that hard. It really just depends on whether they really want it or not. Right. And so I'm trying to find out what it is. Oftentimes when the client comes to us, one, they only know symptoms, they don't know the real problem. And two, they often aren't talking about what's really underneath that's motivating them. They'll say something like, my buddy exited and, I'd like to be playing more golf like him. Really? That's what's motivating you, is you're not playing enough golf? Like, that's your motivation for getting out of your company, right? And so when you peel that onion, you find out, their spouse is really hammering on them to be in Florida more, and they really would like to travel to Europe for a long extended vacation, but they don't feel they can. And when you get down to the bottom of it, you find out they're not getting enough family time, or they're not getting enough of this. That's the thing that you need to understand. And when you understand that, motivating on all the rest of it, or getting them to spend money on it, when you can put your finger on, you really going to tolerate that toothache for another week? No, I want to do that. Like, I want to be done with the toothache. Okay. So it's going to be $10,000 to fix the toothache. Is that okay? Yeah. Don't really care. Just fix the damn toothache, right? That's the bottom line.
Bring it into reality here. So I know this guy. I've known him for a long time. He has a 450 employee shop, multiple locations, got a great brand out there. He's 80, his wife is 60. His wife's running the business. She's having a heck of a time. He's lonely in Columbus, wants to be down in Florida, but doesn't, the wife is up here, and she, so we're now expounding upon, what about an e-stop? What about leaving that legacy? What does that look like? And then circle back around, and something like Growth Drive gets a chance for an interview, not only the current president, which happens to be his wife, and her leadership team of alignment, and can we get alignment around that legacy piece with this main brand? I mean, it's well recognized brand, but he's hardly involved in the business anymore. So, but still is majority owner, right? So, just thought, what is it you really, really want? I started that conversation the other day, and at the end of the conversation, give your business card. I'm going to take it to my wife and talk further about it. So I happen to have, I know where he hangs out. We got a couple the ESOP guys that he's already talked about maybe using. So they don't know that he's thinking about doing this. So we're going to have an accidental meeting between the two to start that conversation, because that's really where it starts. And if we can solve for one of those legacy issue in this particular case, and start down that road, then I can coach him through that process, right? Because then the whole leadership piece and trying to bring everybody along together and align can be a very worthwhile and necessary task. So oftentimes we're trying to figure out, what is that one thing that kind of pushed the owner over to the point where, if this done, I got to get back, being Growth Drive, organization, plan anyways, and create alignment, and then execute on that plan.
Really interesting. You want to have a really interesting conversation, Joe? Put the two spouses in a room and ask them what their goals and objectives are, right? And when the other spouse starts hearing that, hey, you promised me that we were gonna be on the beach in Florida, and you're not fulfilling your promise, right? When it gets a little wrong in the room, that's when there's some reality comes in, right? And it's not just, boy, I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, right? I love my job. I'll probably work until in my 70s, and keep doing it. I won't be doing it at 60, 80 hours a week. In my 70s, maybe I'll be doing it 30 hours a week, or 20, or when I feel like, right? But I love my job, but I also love my wife, and I don't want her to be mad at me and not be happy because we're not spending enough time on vacation, right?
Very quickly to the conversation.
Oh, we're not picking you up, Joseph. Oh, there we go.
You're not real quiet, Joseph. We could hear you a little bit.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Which mic?
Is that better?
It's better.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Just a very quick point. Typically when I'm sitting with the clients and we're getting to the point where we really need to figure out if there's a right fit between us. Obviously, one of the things that we want to make sure is that their financial capacity to execute. It's not just a question of their willingness or their interest. So one of the things I kind of bring up to them, I said, and I put them up front. I said, look, if they're already within the framework of potentially being our client, they're already in the top, let's say 5% of all businesses in the United States. So I make it very clear, look, you're already smart enough to be able to figure this out yourself. The question is, you can spend the next 3 to 5 years figuring it out yourself, or, I can help you put a plan together in 90 or 100 days. Question is you realize that's going to cost money. Is that something that you're comfortable with? And that's when you approach it that way, the question now becomes, from their perspective, what's 3 to 5 years of my life worth vis-a-vis what it's going to cost me to be able to execute and go through this process? And that's something I think that flips it from you charging them money as opposed to how do they value their time? Because when they're valuing their time, it's a completely different conversation. Everybody values their time much more than they value someone else's time and expertise. So when you put it in that perspective, I think it changes the conversation a little bit. And then usually they'll say, yeah, well, what are we talking about? And you can kind of lay out and say, look, this is what it would cost for me. And if you have to bring a fractional CFO or whatever it is that's going to be going on in the process, you're laying it out for them. And then they can kind of say, does that make sense or not? So I think if you present it that way, you can come to a very quick answer in terms of whether or not they're going to be willing to do what needs to be done over the next 3 to 5 years, or whatever the time period that you work with them.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Joseph.
So George, what's the party line? What are you going to be more by doing this process? We get there more, faster or more, more. What are the 3 things that going through Growth Drive really like?
There are 3, or possibly 4 results, right? One is you by improving your business processes, and in that is alignment and accountability, right? You're going to get a business that's easier to run. 2, we know, we have the data, when you increase your strategic capacity, even in just the first dimension, revenues will pop, and revenues and profits will start floating up. I mean, I would say floating because it's almost per force, right? And if you understand dimension 1, you'll understand what. So you're going to have a business that's easier to run. You're going to have a business that is starting to grow as it should, and you have a business that is more valuable. And then the 4th one, is as we have a business that's easier to run, and I love your comments, guys, it allows the CEO to do a couple of things, and one of which is to imagine additional opportunities for their personal and professional lives. And by that, I mean, well, what would it look like if I raised capital to scale the business, or if I sold the business, or. So, but you're really going to end up with a business that's easier to run, on which we've cleared a lot of the bottlenecks to growth, and thereby improve the value of the business. And I'm not the transferable value. I'm not saying that you end up with a business automatically that is ready to sell, but you have put it in a much better position. If you want to learn, there are 20 hours that is
one of the words I like to use with that, regardless of our bullets, is increasing the confidence to arrive at that destination they want. And to collectively, I try to tap in, and I know, Joseph, you've talked about this as well, and now all of us have, the emotion that we need to tap into. And the discovery call, ultimately, there's no change without emotion. In Tim's whole book, you can see it over your right, Tim's right shoulder, his book, there is no change without emotion. So finding that emotion and then providing the framework to get there, the process to get there, enhances the confidence to get there. And I think that's some of what I try to do. And I got to be honest, I need to get more consistently good at that conversation myself.
Agreed.
Working on it.
Me too. But you're making the same point, Larry, that I was. I'm trying to get to the emotional thing, that I'm trying to get to that toothache that they want to go away. Right? That toothache will drive their decision if you understand the toothache.
It's interesting running peer groups for Vistage for 10 years. And biggest thing was from an emotional perspective, they're hanging out with cats that are bigger than them oftentimes, and have already kind of been there, right? So by hanging around those guys, to go pick up how to get where I want to go, because these guys have been there before. So very well, in the Growth Drive book, it refers to, how all these things come together logically, but emotionally, how do I tie that decision back to, you're going to get there with more confidence, you're going to get there faster and less money or whatever the third rail is. And I think it depends who the client is, but that confidence and that someone that's going to be guiding you that already has a team around them, like, I'm part of it. We have 350 people in the community or 400, whatever. But that, we're bringing that to bear to the conversation. So confidence, easy to run is partly, but I'm not sure there's as much emotion in that tagline as
there is only emotion for about 20% of the.
Yeah, it depends on what their status is. If they're really struggling to run it, then there's a lot of emotion there. If that's not a big deal to them, then there's no emotion there, right?
Hey guys, we have 4 minutes until the bottom of the hour. Who thinks it's a good idea to go around and summarize some key takeaways? Would that be okay?
Yeah, great idea.
Awesome. Well, Eric, you thought it was a great idea. You want to go first?
Yeah, I like John's question, and I agree with Larry. I think I'm pretty good at that. I would like to be a lot better at it, identifying in the discovery phase, how to discern who's actually going to go the mile, right? Who's going to go the whole way. So there are a lot of great things that we talked about, but that's one that I'm really focused on, is how to get, and even more so, guys, it's going back to a conversation we had in a previous one. I think that same discernment is who are the COIs who are going to get us to the right people and who aren't the ones, right? Same problem. Who are the COIs who feel the pain of their clients and are going to actually refer them, and who are the COIs who are just going to talk a lot and never do anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Joseph?
So I think this is kind of connected to what our conversation was last week, and very much so including in this week. And I guess everyone calls the voice of the customer. There's a tendency for us as advisors, irrespective of the amount of experience that we have in businesses and consulting clients, that we have to always make sure that we have the ability to step in our clients' shoes, what they're feeling or what they're thinking. I think the more that we can feel that internally, we're able to connect with the clients and be able to help them feel comfortable that we're the right ones to help solve their problems and their issues. I think a lot of the way we discuss and the questions that we're asking are because in a certain sense, we're almost becoming like outside of the scope of the clients that we're dealing with. In other words, we don't no longer feel like the patient. We feel like someone external dealing with the clients. So it might be worthwhile for us to kind of step into that a little bit more.
I love that. We'll do it next week. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Joseph. Tim?
Yeah, two things. I really appreciated the summary of the C3D. I like that, and that was very helpful. And then the conversation since then about how to get engaged, how to take that growing ability and actually either deploy it, monetize it, help other business leaders thrive. So all the conversations, Eric's challenging the thoughts about the mentor and then some of your best practices. One thing I want to throw out is that I found some answers to what we were just talking about, to the point where I literally printed it out. It was a summary of what you had under this week's podcast about the freedom point and everything you're talking about, like where's that eureka moment or getting rid of the toothache. It's the emotional piece. I've never seen a better summary than those 7 or 8 sentences there. I mean, so I literally printed it out, put it in a couple clients' files for me to use as dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Larry, I'm just going down my witness.
I would say just before we got on this call, I had a call with a business owner, $70 million manufacturing laminate business. Tim, he was the gentleman who was in the peer group the other day and left a little early. And I ran out of time because we only talked about the peer group, and I wanted to talk about his business and growth consulting. But what I realized is that I wasn't going down the right path, even though I didn't know we didn't have the full time that I needed. And this conversation helped me remind myself that there is no change without emotion. And he wants to grow. I need to understand the definition of that growth. You reminded me of that today, but get to the emotional component.
Thank you. And Joe Lorenz. Thank you, Larry.
so I'm reminded of all the work with who's the guy Esau or EOS, right? Just wrote the
Wickman, yeah, Gina.
Gina has another book that's really about it's really about, if you look at it, doing what you love with people you love, making a difference, getting compensated fairly, but having time for other passions, right? So how often are we focused on the other passions, right? So my conversation earlier about this business owner, it's like his passion is, doing something, hanging down in Florida. He doesn't feel comfortable because his wife's not there. Everyone else has their wives down there. Well, his wife's in town. He's doing this for passion. So how are we learning that passion with the business owners, doing what they love, people they love, making a difference, getting fairly compensated, but then have time for the passions. Is that's where I think the juice is and the squeeze of getting that emotional content, and have them describe that, and actually have them work. There's a facilitation. We did facilitate exercise around that and describe what that looks like in the future state. And I have evidence that 13 guys did that and a retreat in 2006. And of those 13, 8 have done exactly what they said they're going to do back then.
Nice.
Vision for what they could do in the future. And how often do we ask that owner to articulate that, to draw that, to personify that? And all this head talk was good, but we got to get them to describe that in somewhat detail. It's not going to be exact, right? Because the way that we travel is in this, but oftentimes we got to get them to define what success looks like.
That's right.
And that point, I get the crayons out and just put up the butcher block paper and let's crayon that out. And oh, by the way, they rolled it up and there was a treasure map and they rolled it back. It only said there's a few people, but as they started to get more and more comfortable, this was the treasure map.
Yeah, and that's the point of the growth conversation. Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly. So stay on the emotional side.
There you go.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm 3 minutes late to my next gig. Gentlemen, thank you very much. No ladies this morning. We'll fix that next week. Gentlemen, thank you. Have a great week, everyone.
See you.
Thanks, Joe. Eric, Joseph, Tim, thank you.